Today, I'm going to talk to you about getting started in venturing in food processing. And my name is Renee Threlfall. I'm a research scientist at the Department of Food Science, University of Arkansas System, Division of Agriculture. For the presentation today, I'm going to talk about food systems, food processing, cottage food products, commercial food regulations, food processing businesses, and creating food products. So let's talk about food systems and what they are. So what is a food system? The components of a food system include production, processing, distribution, sales, purchasing, preparation, consumption, and waste disposal. And food is a connector of us all. It's something we all have in common throughout the world. And so this food systems start sometimes in a field, if it's a product that comes from a grower, all the way to when you are disposing of, part of the carrot maybe you've purchased, to the waste disposal. More recently, there has been a drive for local foods, and these are really centered around people who prefer to eat foods grown or farmed relatively close to the places of sale and preparation. It really helps support local economies. It also there's an aspect to local foods where the consumers like to know the history behind the product, more about transparency of the product, how the product was made, what it's made of, and knowing the history all help to encourage that local food industry. And knowing that you're supporting local businesses is also a really great endeavor. And let's talk about food processing. So what is food processing? So food processing is transformation of raw ingredients or foods into other forms. You can also combine raw food ingredients to produce marketable food products that can easily be prepared or served by consumer. And this also creates a value-added potential. An example of simple food processing is if I have a head of lettuce, I'm a grower and I grow lettuce, I've got some lettuce, and I take the lettuce and I slice the lettuce into pieces, then I have processed the lettuce. So that is an example of simply taking a raw product and processing it into, let's say, chopped lettuce, and now I'm going to possibly sell that as a chopped lettuce. So it creates value, a value-added product for the grower, but also the consumer, because now there's more value in the product because there's less work that the consumer has to use to prepare the meal for that product. So the impact of value-added production is it's taking that raw commodity and changing its form to produce a high-quality end product. Not always is it just to produce high quality, but also to produce a product that, like in the lettuce example, is more perceived as having a benefit in terms of less work for the consumer. So that's another way. This diversifies businesses, so it allows, let's say you're a grower and you grow blueberries and for the fresh market or you pick operation, but you end up with blueberries in the end. Maybe you actually harvest your blueberries and you make a blueberry jam so that you have a product that you can sell in the off season. So that's a diversification of the business. And it also helps maintain a food supply throughout the year for the grower. And sometimes when you produce a product that's value added, it is a product that's a little more easy to store and distribute in commercial markets. As the example of the blueberries, who you would have to freeze. You can eat them fresh, but then you need to freeze them. But if you make them into a jelly or a jam or dry the berries, that you can more easily distribute those to the consumers or into commercial markets. Food products sold to consumers. So some products can be made at home if the products fall under Arkansas cottage food laws. And so what I'm going to do next is talk a little bit about what that means in terms of the Arkansas cottage food laws. But most of the products that are made for consumers to eat are made in licensed and inspected facilities. So let's talk about cottage food products first. So what is a cottage food production operation? Cottage food operations exempt some foods from Arkansas Department of Health oversight. So it gives the opportunity to sell some homemade goods without having to invest in commercial kitchens. A person who produces food items in a person's homes that are not potentially hazardous foods. And that is very important because we're going to talk about what is potentially hazardous foods and how you discern the differences. So, potentially hazardous foods include items that must be kept refrigerated or hot to remain safe. So, examples of those, a lot of these have a dairy element. So, cheesecake, cream cheese or cheese-filled items, cream pies, meringue pies, custard pies, and anything containing meat. So your meat pies and things like that would not be able to, none of these products would be eligible for production under a Cottage Food Act. But be careful about making decisions about cottage food law because you need to look up the cottage food law for your state. So if you are in another state beside Arkansas, then the laws may differ. And some states don't have cottage food laws. So you need to be very familiar with your state cottage food law acts. And what I'm talking about really is Arkansas cottage food products. So what is allowed? So if I am going to have make some cottage food products, what can I make at home? I can make bakery products. So, except those that include cream icings or fillings. And so some of the bakery products would be breads and cookies, brownies. Those would be bakery products. You can make candies like caramels. Or something similar to like a lollipop. You can make fruit butters, jams, and jellies. And you can also make chocolate-covered fruit and berries. But the chocolate-covered fruit, the fruit itself cannot be sliced or diced or cut in any way. Because remember, if you slice or dice or cut the fruit, you've actually created a processed food product. So the chocolate-covered fruit has to be whole fruit or whole berries. And that's the chocolate-covered fruit is new and berries is new to the Cottage Food Act. It's a newer item. Other items that can be sold include raw, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole and uncut, like you would find at a farmer's market, maple syrup, sorghum, and honey. And so these are things that may be produced, like particularly the honey by a beekeeper in Arkansas. And also you can do commercially prepackaged products that are not hazardous. An example of this would be if I bought a box of individually wrapped cookie or candy and I resold that individual candy. So as long as it's in its own container or you're not touching the product, then you could potentially resell it. And also you should not be able to have to heat or refrigerate that product. So you could sell those items. And then where can you sell cottage foods? So the key to a cottage food sales is that the product must be sold directly from the person who makes it, the manufacturer, to the customer. So you cannot really have a middleman. So you can't say, I'm going to give you these breads. Can you go and sell these to people at your store? So you need to be basically having a transaction with the consumer. And this can happen at the site where the food is made. So you can sell it from your house. You can also sell it from a farmer's market. You can do it at a county fair or another special event. And so a special event would be probably more like something that would be a craft fair or something that is an event that is scheduled to happen in your city. You can also sell the cottage foods at online farmers markets and pop-up shops within an established business. So the pop-up shop is something new. So let's say you have a friend who owns a small business and you're allowed to be in the business itself and display your cottage food items and sell them to the customer. But it really has to do with directly selling it to the consumer. And one of the things about exchange of money is that you're really not allowed to, in terms of online sales, are not allowed except for the online farmers market. You are allowed to advertise cottage foods online. So let's say I have a jelly, Mama's favorite jelly. I have it on sale, and you let the customer know where you're going to be so they can come and buy it. But you really can't ship them the item and exchange money online in that way, through a web-based business or a Facebook business. Who regulates food production? So in the United States, you have the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, who regulates most food and beverages except poultry and meat. You have the USDA, which regulates meat and poultry, and that's the United States Department of Agriculture. And in Arkansas, we also have the Arkansas Department of Health. And the Department of Health is responsible for regulating food safety in the state and ensuring that the food sold is wholesome and represented honestly. So that you have, if you were selling a grape jelly that actually has grapes in it and it is a grape product. So what are some examples of places that you could make products to sell in commercial kitchens? So in Arkansas, we have commercial kitchen facilities available. And these facilities are inspected and approved by the Arkansas Department of Health. In these facilities, this is where you would make commercial food products to be sold at grocery stores or other retail markets. So you wouldn't be making cottage food products in these facilities. So the facilities located in Arkansas, we have our Sharegrounds facility, which is a new project here at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture, where we have opened Sharegrounds facilities, are these manufacturing facilities in Marshall, McCrory, and Rison. And we also, at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture, have the Arkansas Food Innovation Center located in Fayetteville. And then other facilities located in Arkansas are Our Kitchen in Little Rock and Delta Cuisine, a Southern Kitchen Incubator located in West Memphis. Products that must be produced in inspected facilities in Arkansas. So inspected facilities meaning these manufacturing facilities include acidified foods. If you're making pickles at home, you cannot sell pickles under cottage food law in Arkansas. They must be made in manufacturing facilities. Any kind of pickled vegetable, pickles, pickled green beans, pickled okra. Canned foods such as salsa, green beans, or any kind of spaghetti sauce or salsa must be made in a manufactured facilities. Any kind of smoked, cured, or dried meat, any kind of sprouted seeds or beans, and any kind of processed fruits or vegetables. And again, as a simple example of a processed fruit or vegetable would be if I took a head of lettuce and I dice it into small pieces, then I have processed that product. And now it must be done in an inspected facility in Arkansas. So what are some things you might need to know about food processing businesses? So if you have made a decision to create a manufactured food product to sell commercially, you are actually starting a business organization. So when you're making a business organization, you want to make sure that you are creating the business so that you can get bank loans, you can make decisions about the business. So some of the decisions you make about the business could be that you have a sole proprietorship, a general partnership, a limited partnership, a limited liability corporation, which is an LLC, and a corporation. And so setting up LLCs is a pretty simple way of creating a company. It can be done online in like 15 minutes, and there's not very much cost associated with that. So why create a business for your product? Number one, if you're creating a food business company, you want to keep your business assets separate from your personal assets. So it provides a layer of safety, protecting your personal assets in case something goes wrong with your business, that you run the two operations individually. So you have different bank accounts, you have licenses and permits that you're going to need to get for your food business. So it would be good to have your own company related to that. And you want to have your own business so you can file taxes under that business, but it protects you a little bit against liability. And when we create food products that are sold to consumers, you are liable if for some reason you cause a food safety issue. And so it doesn't totally protect you, but it does provide a layer of protection from your personal assets if you have your business and your personal assets separate. So creating food products. So you are going to become a food entrepreneur. Food entrepreneurship is the knowledge necessary to develop a food product, a restaurant or food retail business, and other food-related endeavors from the initial idea of what you're going to be creating to early growth of the business to the production. And what does it take to make or create food products? If you're a grower or entrepreneur that wants to add value or diversify a business operation, do you have an idea or a concept for a food product? Let's say I've been making Granny's salsa at home, and all my friends love the salsa, and they've told me, why don't you make this so I can buy it from you? That would be an idea for a recipe that you may want to sell. You do have to have an investment capital to start and create a food business. And usually that's around $500 to $1,000 to really get going with the business. And also, do you have the time? Do you have a full-time job and you're only going to be able to work on nights and weekends? Or do you have a more flexible schedule that will allow you to work on your business and dedicate time to creating the business? And one of the things that I see clients in manufacturing facilities that succeed, they have the time, but they also have the passion for the business. So you have to be passionate about your product and your concept for the product in creating the food products. And so here's a graphic that kind of shows the steps toward successful value-added food products. And we start with, that idea, going all the way to kind of refining the recipe, making decisions about the formulation, getting that recipe from a kitchen level style production to, 100 times that recipe, doing a large scale production, doing all the paperwork associated with that, and then ending up with a shelf-stable product that you can sell in a grocery store. And so the skills for food entrepreneurship, like I mentioned, are the passion for your product or business. Because in the end, you're going to be the person that is promoting your product or your business. And if you're not passionate about what you are doing, then it's hard to convey that passion to others. Successful clients that work in our facilities have the ability to follow directions. There's a lot of processes that you have to follow, from cleaning to filling out paperwork, that you must be successful at. And that goes to having really great organizational skills. You're going to own a business. You're going to have to file taxes. You're going to have to be organized in the process of owning a business. And there's lots of paperwork and record keeping associated with food production. You also have to have good work ethics. If you're scheduling at manufacturing sites to come into a facility, you're going to pay to work in those, to rent out that facility or do that production, and you need to show up when you say you're going to show up. You also want to have, if you've scheduled a meeting with a potential buyer, make sure you're making that meeting. So having good work ethics is a positive thing. I do tease our clients a lot about, in our Arkansas Food Innovation Center, about having a passion for cleaning. Food manufacturing is all about cleanliness. You're making a product that is going to be consumed by your consumers that are buying it, and you have to be able to have a good grasp of cleanliness. When you are doing a production run, you clean the equipment and around the equipment you're using in the facility prior to making the product and after making the product. And it also helps to have a knowledge of food science. So there is a lot of science around manufacturing food products, And you want to be able to understand why you're doing certain things. Why are you adjusting an acidity of a product, or why am I adding water to a product, or why am I adding acid to a product, or why do I cook it so long, and what is the importance of that temperature I'm trying to achieve in my product. Maybe if I'm making a juice beverage and I have to heat it up to a certain temperature, why am I having to do that? You're trying to kill basically all the microorganisms that could potentially ruin your product and make people sick if they were to consume the product. So knowledge of food science is very helpful. And so concepts for your food product as you're moving forward, if you're thinking about finding a manufacturing facility to make a product, have you finalized your recipe? We get a lot of clients at AFIC that they have a passion for doing something, but they're not exactly sure what they want to do. But when you start making this leap to manufacturing, you really want to have something ironed out. Let's say I have a cookie recipe. I've been making it through the Cottage Food Act for a few years, and I've decided now that I want to get this into some grocery stores. And a good example like that would maybe be Famous Amos cookies. So you want to have that recipe finalized so that when you meet with the managers at these manufacturing facilities, if you decide to rent a facility, or you're going to lease a building, or you're going to go rent some space, that you have a recipe that you have really perfected. You also have to realize that the product may change when it's produced commercially. When a client comes into Arkansas Food Innovation Center or our Share Grounds facility, they will basically make that on a small scale for our manager, so he sees what the process is. How are the vegetables chopped, and how is the product cooked? And sometimes you have to make changes that you make, small changes, impact how that product is going to look and taste. An example would be if I made let's say I'm making some kind of tomato spaghetti sauce, and I meticulously hand chop all my tomatoes or onions in a certain way. Well, when you're making, when you're chopping 5 onions, it's very different than chopping 500 onions, and you're not going to be able to do that in a hand operation. So will the commercial chopper, how does it change the look of that product? Other examples of, changing is it may be the product has to be heated higher than you normally heat it at home, and it changes the way the product tastes. And so, yes, the product will probably change in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.